She gave me a pair of dollar store socks for my 70th birthday, bright orange and green stripes. They were supposed to be $100,000 money my son sent to save my house. She bought a luxury SUV instead. She thought the old carpenter was finished, too broken to fight back. She was about to learn that old wood still burns hot. My name is Thomas. I've spent 50 years building things, houses where families grew, furniture that lasted generations. A family of my own. I thought I built them strong. I thought they would last. I was wrong. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Let me back up and tell you how a pair of cheap socks destroyed my family, and then somehow saved it. The smell of sawdust always calmed me. It was the scent of honest work, the scent of my life. I stood on my porch, the November air sharp, biting deep. It was my 70th birthday. 70 years. It didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like a weight settling onto my shoulders, heavy and cold. My bones ached. The roof leaked. The house I built with my late wife, Mary, was falling apart around me. Mary always handled the bills. I handled the building. Now Mary was gone, and the foundation was cracking. And I'm not just talking about the house. My pension barely covered the basics. The savings account was thinner than a veneer shaving. I was drowning, quietly. I looked at my hands, calloused, scarred, stained with decades of work. They used to feel strong, capable. Now they just felt old. I was running out of time and money, and I had a sickening feeling, deep in my gut, that the worst was yet to come. Inside I heard my daughter Sarah. She was baking a cake, vanilla and cinnamon mixed with the sawdust in the air. Sarah was a good girl, a teacher, honest. She had Mary's heart. She worried about me. She saw the water stains on the ceiling, the way I winced when the wind blew the drafts through the old windows. But Sarah didn't have the money to help. She lived a simple life, a good life. Then there was my son Michael. Michael was the success story, the one who made it big. Tech millionaire, glass tower in the city, suits that cost more than my old pickup truck. Michael lived in a different world now, a world of stock options and board meetings, a world I didn't understand, a world he shared with Brenda. Brenda. The name tasted like ash in my mouth. She was elegant, all right. Elegant like a polished piece of expensive silverware you're afraid to touch because it shows every fingerprint, cold and sharp. She hated my house. She called it rustic. She'd wrinkle her nose at the worn carpets, at the slightly crooked bookshelves I'd built for Mary decades ago. She always looked like she was holding her breath when she visited, as if my life, my work, smelled of failure. I sighed, pulling my worn jacket tighter. I tried today. I polished the old wooden floors until they gleamed. I cleaned the windows, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. It never was with Brenda. She always found a way to make me feel small, insignificant. But today, she was about to go too far. A car pulled into the driveway. Sleek, expensive, silent. It was Michael. He was alone. That was strange. Brenda usually clung to him like a shadow, especially when visiting the poor relations. He stepped out. He looked tired. The city's stress clung to him like a second skin. He held a small, brightly wrapped gift box in one hand, his phone in the other, always the phone, the lifeline to his world. "Happy birthday, Dad," he said, walking up the steps. He hugged me, quick, distant. His mind was miles away, in a boardroom, closing a deal. "Thanks, son. Good to see you." I wiped the sawdust off my hands onto my jeans. A nervous habit. "Where's Brenda?" "Oh, she had errands," Michael said, avoiding my eyes. Attell. He always looked away when he was hiding something, ever since he was a kid. A charity thing. "She'll be along shortly." "Listen, Dad. I wanted to talk to you." His tone was serious. My stomach tightened. Was he finally going to suggest the retirement home? The place Sarah and I joked about, but secretly feared. "Sure, Mike. Let's sit." We sat on the porch swing I built for Mary when she was pregnant with Michael. The chains creaked under our weight. The sound usually brought me comfort. Memories of Mary, her hand on her swollen belly, laughing. Today, the creak sounded like a warning. Michael was usually brimming with confidence, the kind that comes with making too much money too quickly. Today, he looked uneasy, shifting in his seat. His expensive shoes tapped nervously on the wooden planks. Tap, tap, tap. "So," Michael started, leaning forward, "I know you've been worried about the house. Sarah mentioned the roof again, and the property taxes. I nodded slowly. I hated talking about money. I'd always been the provider. The strong one. Admitting I was struggling felt like admitting defeat. I hated the weakness in my own voice. It's getting harder, Michael. The repairs, they keep piling up. He smiled then, a genuine smile. It reached his eyes for the first time that day. It was the smile of my boy, the one I remembered from before the money, before Brenda. That's why I wanted to ask, he said, his voice full of pride and relief. I know you're too stubborn to ask for help, Dad, but I'm doing well, really well. And I want you to be comfortable. He paused, beaming. He looked so happy, so relieved. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things were going to be okay. Maybe the weight on my shoulders would lift. I was wrong. The weight was about to crush me. So, Dad, how do you like the $100,000 I gave you through Brenda? Time stopped. The wind died. The sound of Sarah humming in the kitchen vanished. The world went silent. I just stared at him. $100,000? That was enough to fix everything. The roof, the mortgage, my medication. It was enough to breathe. It was life-changing money, but I hadn't received anything. I don't understand, I stammered. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. $100,000. I must have misheard him. Michael's smile faltered. He looked confused now. The money, Dad. I authorized the transfer 3 weeks ago. I specifically told Brenda to bring you the cashier's check. I told her it was your birthday present, to fix everything. He frowned. Did you get it deposited okay? I know you don't trust online banking. 3 weeks ago. I thought back. Brenda had stopped by. Unusual. She hadn't even come inside. Just met me on the porch. She said she was in a hurry. Handed me a small gift bag. Smiled. That cold, polished smile. And then she left. I hadn't thought anything of it. Just another slight, another dismissal. I looked down at the small gift box Michael had placed in my lap. I hadn't opened it yet. It was the same wrapping paper as the bag Brenda gave me. My hands, calloused and scarred from years of work, were trembling as I pulled the ribbon. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of cheap tissue paper, was a pair of socks. Bright orange and green striped socks. The kind you buy at a dollar store. The kind that scream cheap afterthought. A joke. The humiliation burned in my throat. Hot and acidic. It tasted like bile. I held them up. The silence between us was deafening. The bright colors mocked me. Son, my voice was rough, barely a whisper. She only gave me a pair of socks from you. I couldn't look him in the eye. The shame was too much. But then the shame turned to anger. A slow, cold burn. Michael's face went white. He stared at the socks as if they were poisonous snakes. What? That's impossible. I gave her the check myself. I saw her put it in her purse. I told her how important this was. He fumbled for his phone again, his hands shaking now. I have the confirmation from the bank that the check was issued. I don't understand. He was scrambling, trying to deny the ugly truth staring him in the face. But I understood. I understood perfectly. Brenda had finally shown her true colors, and they were uglier than those socks. And the proof of her betrayal was about to arrive. At that exact moment, we heard another car. The sound was low, powerful, obscene. A gleaming midnight blue luxury SUV rolled silently up my driveway. It wasn't just expensive. It was a statement. It must have cost a fortune, easily 6 figures. It sat there, humming, a monument to greed parked on my cracked concrete. My blood ran cold. I knew who it was, and I knew exactly where the money went. The driver's door opened. Brenda stepped out. She was wearing a white designer dress that hugged her figure perfectly, and sunglasses that covered half her face. She looked like she had just stepped off a yacht. She waved cheerily, jingling the keys to the new car. A triumphant sound. "Happy birthday, Thomas," she called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Sorry I'm late. The traffic was dreadful." Michael stood up so fast the porch swing rocked violently. The chain screamed. He stared at the SUV, then at the socks in my hand, then back at the SUV. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The color drained from his face, replaced by a mottled, angry red. He finally saw her. "Brenda," Michael's voice cracked. He walked down the steps towards her, his fists clenched at his sides. He looked dangerous. I hadn't seen that look in years. Brenda paused, lowering her sunglasses slightly. A dramatic gesture. She looked annoyed by his tone, like he was interrupting her performance. "What is it, darling? You look stressed. It's bad for your skin." The casual dismissal was worse than a denial. It was contempt. "Where is the money?" Michael demanded, his voice shaking with rage. "What money?" She played dumb. She was good at it. "Don't be dramatic, Michael. It's Thomas's birthday. Let's not ruin it with talk about finances." "The $100,000, he shouted, gesturing wildly at me. I stood there holding the ridiculous socks. A prop in their twisted play. The check I told you to give my father. 3 weeks ago. Brenda laughed. A high, tinkling sound, like breaking glass. "Oh, that. It's complicated, Michael. Bank transfers take time. You know how these things are. Bureaucracy. Lies." She always smiled when she lied. "It was a cashier's check, Brenda," Michael yelled, stepping closer to her. He was towering over her now, but she didn't flinch. She was used to controlling him. "It doesn't take time. It's been 3 weeks. I stood up. My anger finally broke through the shock. The humiliation. I walked down the steps, standing next to my son. United. "And look at this." I held up the socks. "Is this what $100,000 looks like to you? A joke? A humiliation?" My voice was shaking. I hated that it was shaking. Brenda sighed, like rolled her eyes. She looked at me as if I were a stubborn child. "A nuisance. Thomas, please. They are nice socks. Very colorful." She dismissed me completely. Then she turned back to Michael. "And the money? Well, we had some immediate needs." Immediate needs. The words hung in the air. Ugly. Selfish. She stroked the hood of the new SUV, lovingly. Her manicured nails tapped on the gleaming paint. Tap, tap, tap. The sound grated on my nerves. "This baby wasn't going to buy itself," she purred. And frankly, Michael, the old sedan was getting embarrassing. Embarrassing. The word hung in the air, poisonous. "You bought a car?" Michael looked devastated. His perfect, curated life was starting to crack right in front of my eyes. With the money meant for my father's home, his life? "Our home, Michael," Brenda corrected sharply. Her sweetness vanished. The steel underneath showed through. "And this car is for our image. You're a CEO, not a charity worker. We have a status to maintain." She looked at my house, then back at the car. The comparison was deliberate, cruel. We can't be seen driving a 2-year-old car. What would people think? I couldn't believe the arrogance, the sheer, unadulterated greed. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. She felt entitled to it. Sarah opened the screen door, drawn by the shouting. Her face was pale, eyes wide with alarm. She had flour on her apron. She took one look at the new car, Brenda's defiant stance. The socks in my hand. She understood immediately. Sarah always saw the truth behind the facade. "You didn't," Sarah whispered, horrified. "How could you do that? How could you be so cruel?" "Stay out of this, Sarah," Brenda snapped, her eyes narrowing. "This is between Michael and me. You wouldn't understand." She looked Sarah up and down, judging her simple clothes, her lack of ambition. You live in a world where image doesn't matter. We don't have that luxury. The implication was clear. We were beneath her. We were the charity case. "It's not luxury, Brenda. It's theft," I said, my voice low and steady. The shock was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was war, and the real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. The birthday party was ruined. The cake Sarah baked sat on the kitchen counter, untouched, unlit. The air in the house was thick with tension, heavy and suffocating, so thick you could choke on it. Brenda had retreated to the guest room, claiming a headache. I knew she was on the phone, spinning her story, playing the victim, controlling the narrative. She was good at that. Michael sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, staring blankly at his laptop screen. He looked broken. "I'm checking the accounts, Dad," he muttered, his voice hollow. "I have to see it for myself. I have to understand how she did this." He still didn't want to believe it. He was looking for an explanation, an excuse. He wouldn't find one. I sat across from him, the ridiculous orange and green socks still on the table, a symbol of everything that was wrong, a cheap replacement for respect. "Michael," I said quietly, "why did you send it through her? Why not give the check directly to me?" "You know how she is." I had to ask. I had to know why he trusted her more than me. He sighed, rubbing his eyes. He looked exhausted, older than his years. "She handles all our personal finances. I'm always busy with the company, the investors, the board." He looked up, his eyes filled with regret and pain. "It was just easier. The word echoed in the quiet kitchen. "She insisted on managing the gift," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "Said she wanted to help you set up the accounts. Make sure you didn't get overwhelmed." He laughed bitterly. A harsh, broken sound. "I trusted her, Dad. I never thought she would steal from you. From me. Steal." The word hung in the air. Ugly. Unavoidable. A few minutes later, Michael gasped. He leaned closer to the screen, his face pale. "It's true," he whispered, horrified. The truth was always uglier than the lie. The cashier's check was deposited into her personal savings account, Michael said, his voice trembling. "The same day I gave it to her. Not our joint account, her private one." He kept scrolling. The money was transferred out 2 days later to the car dealership. It wasn't an impulse buy. It was calculated, premeditated. The depth of the deception was staggering. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she didn't care who she hurt. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. Sarah had been washing dishes, her back rigid with anger. She turned around, dried her hands forcefully on a towel, and marched toward the guest room. "Sarah, wait," I called out, but it was useless. Sarah had Mary's temper, fierce and righteous. When she saw injustice, she couldn't stay silent. I followed her. Michael followed me. We were united now, but we were walking into a war zone. We heard the guest room door open. "How could you?" Sarah's voice was shaking with rage. "How could you steal from Dad? He's struggling. He has nothing." Brenda's voice was cold, dismissive, devoid of any remorse. "He has a house. He has a pension. He's fine. He doesn't need that kind of money." The cruelty was staggering. "He can't afford his medication." Sarah shouted, "The roof is leaking. He is barely eating. And you bought a car? You selfish, greedy." "Careful, Sarah," Brenda interrupted, viciously. "Don't say something you'll regret." She wasn't just defending herself. She was threatening. There was a pause. Then Brenda delivered the blow that shattered the last remnants of peace. The insult that nearly broke me. Brenda's voice dropped. It was low, dripping with venom. "Look, you wouldn't understand. You're just a school teacher living in a tiny apartment." She looked Sarah up and down, a sneer twisting her perfectly lipsticked mouth. "Your father is content wallowing in his sawdust and memories. Michael and I live in the real world, a world where appearances matter." The air in the room grew cold. I could feel the insult coming before she even said it. She was aiming to kill. She paused. I could hear the contempt in her voice. "Frankly, Thomas's lifestyle is embarrassing." Embarrassing. The word hit me harder than any physical blow. My life, the life I built with Mary, the hard work, the honesty, the values I held dear. It was embarrassing to her. My ears rang. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Was she right? Was I just an old man clinging to the past? Was my pride, my refusal to ask for help earlier, the reason she felt entitled to take what was offered? No. I looked at the sawdust on my hands. It wasn't dirt. It was proof of work, proof of creation, proof of a life lived honestly. She was the one who was empty. She was the one who was embarrassing. Michael heard it too. He stood up, his face hardening into a mask of cold fury. He walked to the guest room. "Brenda," he said, his voice dangerously calm. Get out. We need to talk. Now. She emerged, annoyed, but still supremely confident. She truly believed she had done nothing wrong, that her lifestyle justified everything. That confidence was about to shatter. Michael, darling, don't let them upset you. She cooed, trying to touch his arm, to soothe him, to control him. He flinched away, as if burned. The rejection stunned her. You admitted it, he said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. You took the money. I reallocated it, she corrected, condescending, to a better investment. Thomas would have just wasted it on shingles and pipe. This, she waved her hand toward the window where the SUV sat, gleaming, is an asset. He is my father. Michael yelled, finally losing his composure. The dam broke. It was a gift for him. It wasn't yours to allocate. It wasn't yours to steal. Everything you have is mine, Michael, Brenda said, her eyes narrowing. The mask was slipping. The monster underneath was showing. I support your career. I manage your social life. I host your parties. I made you who you are. She leaned closer, her voice low and menacing. Don't forget that. The argument raged. Circular, pointless. Brenda was a master manipulator. She twisted every accusation, played the victim, claimed the pressures of their high society life, forced her hand. She knew how to push Michael's buttons, how to exploit his insecurities. I could see him wavering, the doubt creeping back in. But then something happened. A small mistake that changed everything, a twist that revealed the true depth of the rot. And it wasn't me who found it. Brenda's phone buzzed on the hallway table. She glanced at it, quickly silenced it. A moment later, it buzzed again, and again, incessant, urgent. Aren't you going to get that? I asked, a suspicion growing in my gut. A cold dread. It's nothing. Telemarketers, she said. Too quickly, her eyes darted nervously to the phone. She was hiding something. Something big. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like, because what we found next was worse than theft. She made an excuse, went to the bathroom, but she made a fatal mistake. She left her phone on the table. I know I shouldn't have. Mary raised me better. Privacy is sacred. But this wasn't just about the $100,000 anymore. This was about protecting my son. This was about survival. My conscience screamed at me. Don't look. Don't sink to her level. Invading her privacy felt wrong, dirty. But if I didn't, she might get away with it. She might continue to destroy Michael. I looked at my son, his face pale and drawn. Trapped. I knew what I had to do. Check it, Michael, I said, my voice low. Check the phone. Now. He hesitated, the ethical dilemma warring on his face. Then he nodded. As soon as the bathroom door closed, Michael picked it up. The screen lit up with notifications. Not telemarketers. Text messages from a bank, emails from a lawyer, urgent, payment declined, balance exceeded, reminder, minimum payment due on platinum card, $50,000. Confidential divorce settlement strategy. My blood ran cold. Divorce? Michael quickly opened the messages, his hands shaking as he scrolled. Oh my God, he whispered, his voice breaking. I looked over his shoulder. Debt, massive, crippling debt. Dozens of credit cards, maxed out, shopping sprees in New York, Paris, London. Thousands of dollars spent on jewelry, designer clothes, expensive restaurants. It was staggering. The sheer volume of consumption. It wasn't just the car. The $100,000 wasn't for an asset. It was a desperate attempt to cover the mountain of debt she had hidden from him. A drop of water in an ocean of greed. She had been living a lie, funding her extravagant lifestyle, on secret credit, bleeding Michael dry. And the emails from the lawyer confirmed the worst. She wasn't just spending money. She was planning her escape. She was preparing to divorce Michael, planning to take him for everything he had. The emails detailed her strategy, ruthless, calculated, cold. She never loved him. She only loved his money. She wasn't just greedy. She was treacherous. When Brenda came out of the bathroom, she saw her phone in Michael's hand. Her face turned pale, the carefully applied makeup suddenly looking clownish. The game was up, and she knew it. You went through my phone? She shrieked, trying to snatch it back. How dare you? That's invasion of privacy. You have no right. She was trapped, cornered, desperate. How much, Brenda? Michael asked, his voice dead, devoid of emotion. The shock was too great. How much debt do you have? She stammered. It's manageable, just a little cash flow problem. The economy is tough. Still lying. Even now, it was pathological. A little? Michael turned the phone toward her, the evidence glaring in the dimly lit hallway. You're over $500,000 in debt. You used the money for my father to pay off your credit cards, and it still wasn't enough. He paused, his eyes fixed on the screen, the next words catching in his throat. And you're planning to divorce me? The facade crumbled. The elegance vanished, replaced by a desperate, trapped animal. I had to, she cried, fake tears streaming down her face. The performance started again. The pressure, Michael. Everyone expects me to look perfect, to host perfect parties. It costs money. She tried to play the victim one last time. And you were always working. It was lonely. Lonely. The excuse of the selfish. Lonely? Michael laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You were busy stealing from me, planning to leave me. Michael looked so broken, betrayed. A part of me felt pity for him. The pain of realizing the person you love is a fraud. The pain of divorce is ugly. But then I looked at Brenda, the crocodile tears already drying on her cheeks, her eyes darting around, calculating her next move. There was no remorse, only desperation. Forgiveness would be a mistake. A fatal one. Dad, Sarah said quietly, standing beside me, her hand on my arm, steadying me. She will destroy him if he stays with her. She was right. This had to end. Now, Michael went back to his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He wasn't just checking their personal accounts anymore. He was looking deeper, into the heart of his company. He was transforming right before my eyes, from a victim to a fighter. I felt a growing fear. What if she had ruined him completely? What if his company was compromised? What if the fallout from this was so massive that he would lose everything he had worked so hard for? Maybe it was better not to know, to contain the damage. But I knew that ignorance was what allowed Brenda to thrive. We had to know the truth, no matter how painful, and the truth was more painful than I could have imagined. We need help, Dad, Michael said, his voice tight, controlled. This is bigger than I thought. This is criminal. He dialed a number. Anita Sanchez, please. It's Michael. Tell her it's an emergency. I'd heard him mention Anita, his corporate lawyer. A shark. A moment later, a sharp voice came through the speaker. Michael, this better be good. I'm in the middle of a deposition. Anita Sanchez talked fast, sharp, like a nail gun. I could hear the incessant clicking of a pen in the background. Michael explained the situation. The stolen gift, the hidden debt, the divorce plans. His voice was steady now. Cold? Professional. Anita didn't waste time with sympathy. Michael, listen to me very carefully. Secure all your assets. Change every password. Personal and corporate, immediately. The clicking pen stopped. We need a forensic accountant. Someone who can find money that doesn't want to be found. I know the best. She recommended a man named David Chen. Quiet, detail-oriented, ruthless with numbers. Anita arranged for him to access Michael's accounts remotely. Immediately, the investigation had begun. The professionals were taking over. We waited. The tension in the room was unbearable. Brenda stood by the door, looking trapped, defiant but scared. She knew what was coming. She knew she had underestimated us. While Michael worked with David Chen on the laptop, setting up the access, I noticed something outside. My neighbor, Mrs. Petrov. An older woman, always watching from her window, pretending to garden. She knew everything that happened on this street. She waved me over, hesitantly, her eyes wide. I walked to the fence line. The cold air hit my face. Mrs. Petrov looked nervous, wringing her hands in her apron. Thomas, she whispered, looking toward my house, checking if Brenda was watching. I didn't want to say anything. It wasn't my business. But that woman, your daughter-in-law, what is it, Mrs. Petrov? My voice was tight. What else could there be? She's been meeting someone, she said, a man, in a fancy red sports car. They meet down the street by the old oak tree, not here at the house. My blood ran cold. Was she cheating on Michael too? Was the betrayal physical as well as financial? They seemed close, Mrs. Petrov continued. He gives her envelopes, thick envelopes, cash. I think cash. This complicated everything. If she had an accomplice, the conspiracy was deeper than we thought. When? I asked, my grip tightening on the fence post. The last few months, usually when Michael is traveling for business. She looked genuinely worried. I thought maybe they were business associates. But it felt strange, secretive. I thanked Mrs. Petrov. I went back inside. The house felt colder now, darker. Michael was staring at the screen, his face grim. David Chen was talking to him through the laptop speakers. David's voice was calm, professional, but the words were devastating. Michael, David said, I've analyzed the preliminary data. I found something bad. He paused. This is the final nail in the coffin. It wasn't just the debt, Michael said, his voice trembling with a newfound fury. I had never seen him look like this. The sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He turned the laptop toward Brenda, who was standing in the living room, her arms crossed defensively. You've been embezzling. Brenda froze, the color drained from her face completely. The defiance melted away, replaced by sheer terror. This was different. This was serious. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, the lie weak, pathetic. For the past 2 years, David Chen explained, through the speaker, his voice clinical, precise. Small amounts at first, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, siphoned from the company accounts. He explained how she did it. Sophisticated. Criminal, disguised as consulting fees and supply costs. Paid to a shell corporation registered in her name. Michael stood up, towering over her. How much, David? David Chen paused. We held our breath. Total amount, just over $1 million. $1 million. The number hung in the air, staggering. This was no longer a family dispute. This was a crime, a federal crime. The stakes had just skyrocketed. $1 million. Embezzlement. This meant prison time for Brenda. Serious time. The scandal would be massive. Public. Humiliating. It could destroy Michael's company. His reputation. Maybe we could handle it quietly. Settle out of court. Avoid the mess. Protect Michael. But then I thought about the socks. The disrespect. The calculated cruelty. The word embarrassing. She deserved to face the consequences of her actions. Justice had to be served. No matter the cost. The living room felt small. Suffocating. The silence was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock I had built years ago, marking the passing of time, the irreversible destruction of a family. Brenda, Michael, Sarah, and I stood in the center of the room. The battle lines were drawn. The illusion of the perfect family was shattered, leaving behind the ugly reality of greed and betrayal. Anita Sanchez was on the phone again, listening to David Chen's report. Michael, her voice was sharp, decisive. We have enough to press charges. We need to call the police. Now, we need to report the embezzlement before she can destroy more evidence. Michael hesitated. This was his wife, the woman he loved, the mother of his future children. Sending her to prison felt impossible. I had to step in. I had to force him to see the truth, to reclaim his integrity. I had to protect him even if it meant hurting him now. Michael, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. I felt Mary's presence beside me, giving me strength. I've kept quiet for years, I continued, the words pouring out of me. I watched her disrespect my home. I watched her belittle my lifestyle. I watched her pull you away from us, convincing you that we were beneath you. I swallowed my pride. I accepted the distance. I swallowed the insults. Because I thought you were happy. I thought you loved her. But this, I pointed to the laptop screen, the undeniable proof of her crimes. This is different. This is not just about money. It's about honor. It's about honor. It's about trust. It's about the values I taught you. The values Mary taught you. I laid it all out. The stolen gift, the hidden debt, the embezzlement, the years of cold manipulation, and calculated deception. She has betrayed you, son, and she has betrayed me. She has poisoned everything she touched. You need to handle this. You need to choose, because I will not have a thief in my family. I will not have someone who values money over honor in my life. I paused. The next words tore at my soul. The ultimate ultimatum. The hardest thing I ever had to say. If you don't deal with this, right now, if you choose her over the truth, you lose me forever. To risk losing my son, but I had to do it. For him, as much as for me. I had to force him to make the choice. The right choice. Michael stared at me. His world hanging in the balance. Brenda realized she was cornered. The evidence was undeniable. The manipulation wasn't working. The tears were useless. The lawyers were involved. The police were coming. So she switched tactics. She went on the attack, like a wounded animal fighting for survival. Vicious and desperate. She laughed. A cruel, harsh sound that echoed in the quiet room. Handle what, Thomas? You think he's going to choose you? She looked me up and down, disgusted. Contempt radiating from her. A run-down old carpenter living in a shack. A man who smells like sawdust and failure. The venom in her voice was shocking. But this time, the words didn't hurt me. They fueled me. She turned to Michael, her eyes blazing with defiance and desperation. Michael, tell your father we're leaving. This house is suffocating me. This whole pathetic family is dragging us down. She walked to the hallway table, snatched the keys to the new SUV, the symbol of her greed, the proof of her betrayal, the vehicle bought with the money meant for my home. Let's go, Michael, she commanded, walking toward the front door. She didn't even look back. She was that sure of her power over him, that confident in his weakness. This was it, the moment that defined everything. Michael stood frozen. He looked at me, at my worn hands, calloused from years of work, hands that had held him as a baby, taught him how to swing a hammer, how to build a life based on honesty and hard work. Then he looked at Brenda, standing by the door, her manicured nails tapping impatiently on the expensive key fob, the embodiment of everything he thought he wanted, everything he had sacrificed for. Time stretched. I held my breath. Sarah was crying silently beside me. My heart sank. I thought I had lost him. Illusion or reality? Greed or honor? He had to choose. Michael walked slowly toward her. Brenda smiled. Triumphantly. A cruel twist of her lips. Victory. She reached out to open the door. Turning the knob, the sound echoed in the silent room. But Michael didn't follow her. He reached out, closed his hand over hers, stopping her from opening the door, and took the keys from her grasp. The sound of the keys changing hands was louder than a gunshot. Brenda looked stunned. What are you doing? Give me the keys, Michael. Don't be ridiculous. Michael looked her straight in the eyes, his face filled with a profound sadness, a deep regret, but also a newfound strength, a clarity I hadn't seen in years. He was back. My son was back. No, we are not leaving. His voice was calm, clear, final. You are leaving. Brenda gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Shock. You can't be serious. You need me. You love me. You can't survive without me. I love the woman I thought you were, Michael said, his voice dripping with realization. But I don't know you. I needed a wife. I got a parasite. A thief. He held up the keys. This car is being seized as evidence, along with everything else you bought with the money you stole from me and my father. He walked to the phone, dialed 911. I'm filing for divorce, he told her, as he reported the embezzlement to the police operator. And I am pressing charges. It's over, Brenda. It's really over. Brenda's face twisted in rage. She screamed, cursed, threatened. She lunged at him, trying to snatch the keys back, her nails clawing at his hand. Sarah and I moved to block her, to protect him. Michael just stood there, unwavering, speaking calmly into the phone, setting the wheels of justice in motion. The old carpenter still had some strength left, and my son had found his sif. A few minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. A police car pulled into the driveway, lights flashing, bathing the living room in red and blue. Detective Miller stepped out, sharp suit, chewing gum constantly. He looked world-weary, tired of dealing with the greed and stupidity of the rich. He walked into the house, taking control of the scene. He listened to Michael's statement, looked at the evidence compiled by David Chen on the laptop, looked at the SUV gleaming in the driveway. The evidence was overwhelming. He turned to Brenda, who had stopped screaming and was now staring at the floor. Defeated, "Ma'am," Detective Miller said, his voice flat, professional. "You're under arrest for grand larceny and embezzlement." Brenda realized she had lost, that her reign of terror was over. As Detective Miller handcuffed her, the metal clicking shut, she looked up at me. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Pure, unadulterated hatred. "You did this," she hissed. "You ruined everything. You old fool." "No, Brenda," I said quietly, looking at the handcuffs binding her wrists. "You did. I built things to last." She only knew how to destroy. We watched as the police car drove away, taking Brenda out of our lives. Forever. The image of her, elegant and defiant, reduced to the back seat of a squad car, a stark symbol of her fall from grace. The silence that followed was profound. The storm had passed, but the wreckage remained. The house felt different now, lighter, cleaner. The air smelled of sawdust and vanilla again. Michael slumped onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. He started to cry, not the quiet tears of sadness, but the racking sobs of a man whose world had just shattered, who had finally realized the true cost of his choices, the cost of his ambition. Sarah and I sat beside him. I put my arm around his shoulder, pulling him close, just like I used to when he was a little boy, scared of the dark. "I'm so sorry, Dad," he choked out, his voice muffled by his tears. "I was so blind. I was so stupid. I let her treat you like that," he continued, consumed by guilt. "I prioritized the image, the success, over everything that truly mattered. Family, honor, you." He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen, raw with pain. "I almost lost you. You didn't lose me, son," I said gently, my heart aching with love for him. "You found me again, and more importantly, you found yourself." He nodded, the tears still flowing. But these were different tears. Tears of relief, of release. The next few months were hard, a brutal awakening. The divorce was messy, public, humiliating. Anita Sanchez was ruthless. She dismantled Brenda's life, piece by piece, protecting Michael's assets. The legal battle over the embezzlement was even messier. Detective Miller dug deeper, guided by David Chen's forensic counting. The trail of greed was long and winding. They found out who the man in the red sports car was. Mrs. Petrov's testimony was crucial. She identified him in a lineup. He wasn't Brenda's lover. He was her fence. He was helping her liquidate the assets she bought with the stolen money, turning jewelry and designer goods into cash. The thick envelopes Mrs. Petrov saw, untraceable money for her escape plan. He was arrested too. He flipped immediately, testifying against Brenda in exchange for a lighter sentence. Brenda tried everything to destroy Michael, to paint herself as the victim of an emotionally abusive husband and a controlling father-in-law. But the evidence was too strong. The paper trail, the hidden debt, the shell corporation, the testimony of David, Anita, the fence, and even Mrs. Petrov. Brenda was found guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 5 years in state prison. The image of her in an orange jumpsuit, so similar to the color of the socks she gave me, felt like poetic justice. The money was eventually recovered. Most of it. The SUV was sold. the assets liquidated. Michael insisted I take the original $100,000 and much more. I used it to fix the roof, pay off the mortgage, and set up a college fund for Sarah's future children. I finally had the financial security I'd worked so hard for all my life. But the money didn't matter. Not really. What mattered was that I had my family back, my son back. One sunny afternoon, a few months later, spring had arrived. The world felt new again, clean, fresh. The smell of blooming flowers mixed with the sawdust. Michael came over. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, the same kind he used to wear when he helped me on construction sites during his summer vacations. He looked different, lighter. The stress was gone from his eyes, the ambition replaced by peace. "Hey, Dad," he said, walking onto the porch. He was carrying a toolbox. My old toolbox, the one I gave him when he was a teenager. Sarah said the porch swing was broken. It had broken during the confrontation with Brenda, a casualty of the fight. I hadn't had the heart to fix it yet. It felt like a scar on the house, a reminder of the day everything changed. "Sure," I said, smiling. A real smile, full of warmth and pride. "The tools are in the garage. Let's get to work." We worked side by side, the smell of sawdust and fresh coffee filling the air, the rhythmic sound of the hammer, the smooth glide of the sandpaper. It felt right, natural, like coming home. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We were communicating in a language we both understood, the language of honest work, of building something real, something that lasts. We weren't just fixing a swing. We were rebuilding a relationship, stronger this time, built on a foundation of honesty, respect, and the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the love of family, the integrity of your character, and the peace that comes from living an honest life. As we finished sanding the last piece, I looked at my son. He was no longer the stressed millionaire chasing an image, the distracted CEO burdened by a life he didn't truly want. He was just Michael, my son, the carpenter's son. He looked at me, his eyes clear and bright, and smiled. A real smile, full of warmth and love. And that, right there, was worth more than all the money in the world. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.